St-Laurent St-Catherine. This is the center of Montreal. This is the busiest commercial street and the east-west dividing line, the nerve center of St-Laurent. That's why it's a historic corner on top of being on a historic street.
It is fair to say that this is Montreal's most famous intersection, the corner of St-Laurent and St-Catherine. I mean, for at least 50 years, this was why many people came to Montreal. It was famous. This was the heart of the red light district. This was where the entertainment
became the heart of the
unfolded.
red light district around 1810, 1815. The 1860s is the first incident I was able to find of there being this, we got to clean up this strip. 1860s. Obviously, it stuck in there, you know. After that, that's why a lot of these buildings were built and nightclubs were built. It was bustling. And this goes way, way back to the early 1800s. The reason it became very popular around 1810 was up until 1805, there was actually a wall around the city of Montreal. All of old Montreal, around roughly where Viger of St. Antoine is, it was a walled city, and St. Laurent was the main gate, and that's where the name The Main comes from. And it was outside of the main gates of any walled city, going back to the Middle Ages, where you would have hookers, prostitutes, alcohol, you know, through times of intolerance. You had to go out the main, just outside the main gates, you would find some vice. So it's, at this point, I guess 200 years of history of spiciness and nightlife and, you know, somewhat sinful stuff. The peak, of course, being between World War I and the 60s, the soldiers, the jazz age. I mean, that's when this was like Broadway, and all these nightclubs were just super busy. But it's really a long tradition, and it's, to me, it's woven in like the fabric. Again, looking at the buildings, the styles, the continuity. I mean, as we're gonna gauge the value, the cultural, historical value of a place, you can't ask better than the same type of activity, 200 years of buildings that respect each other and provide continuity, all these different levels of fabric woven together on one strip. That, to me, puts it on a high, you know, 9.5 out of 10 on historical value. You rarely see all those ingredients in one place.
The Café Clio has been here since the mid-1800s. It was built originally, I believe there was some sort of costume shop inside of there, but eventually over the years it became not just a costume shop, but used for live entertainments. Vaudeville, burlesque, all of these sort of movements, entertainment movements unfolded here at the Café Cleopatra. It was also the first place that allowed transvestites to perform. It was the first place that was gay friendly, for example. So it really is a national treasure if you're into this type of stuff, which I think you know, a lot of Canadians are. Canadians are very open-minded people, and it's the type of thing that really needs to be celebrated and preserved, which is interesting because they wanted to demolish this along with the entire block. If you look just down there where the Monument National is, you can see an entire block of buildings that were built in the 18th century. And this was all sort of given carte blanche to this developer, Christian Iaccarini, by the mayor of Montreal, Mayor Gerald Tremblay. And he gave him expropriation rights to simply expropriate the entire block in order to demolish it and build a giant office tower for Hydro-Quebec. Now, obviously, because this is a National Historic Site, there was a big problem with this plan, because not only are these buildings heritage buildings and do they have historic value, but also they were in use, and they were in use by the people who represented this National Historic Site. And the National Historic Site is because of small businesses, because of immigration, and because of entertainment. So you had a lot of small businesses in here run by immigrants, and of course you also had a lot of entertainment here, like in the Café Cleopatra, or the Catacombs was one of the bars, or the Opera nightclub. So all of these places catered to the purpose of the National Historic Site. And so when
they were on the up and up too. They
were on the up and up, absolutely. And because the mayor authorized the destruction of the entire area, disregarding the fact that it's a National Historic Site, disregarding the guidelines to protect the commemorative integrity, a big fight erupted. Now, the developer had lots of money, so he was able to buy out certain businesses, such as the Montreal Pool Room, which used to be down there. It's now right behind you here. It moved across the street. And Main Importations, which was Montreal's first Middle Eastern grocery store, they just took the money and ran, so their business doesn't exist anymore. The only thing that was able to be saved was the Cafe Cleopatra right here on this side of the street. And the reason it was saved was because it has a lot of artists here in the city who support this venue, because not only is it a striptease club, which is downstairs in the basement, but upstairs it is a burlesque hall, and it has been in use for the longest time, and it's actually a historic theater up there. It's beautiful. And nowadays it's being used by all sorts of different burlesque troupes like the Dead Dolls Dancers, but also drag shows, fetish nights.
Oh, there's theater groups.
Musicians use it. It's honestly, I think it's, as someone who's in the entertainment business, as someone who actually has a master's degree in theater, I can tell you this is probably my favorite performance space in the entire city. It's beautiful up there.
There's got to be very few in the whole country that have been performance space non-stop for 120 years.
Yeah.
Like since 1892, I think, is roughly when the second floor and up was in use, and it never has stopped. You know, it went through some different names. It was Cafe Canasta before Cleopatra and so on, but it never. It always kept that function. It wasn't renovated, used for something else, then switched back. I don't know if there are any. There might be only a handful in Canada, maybe just a handful in North America that have kept their function. And again, as an architectural value or history, that puts it at the top rungs. Very few cities would not put a high value of heritage on a place that's never changed its function like that, and is still built. You walk in and you feel it. You could almost visualize a burlesque show or a vaudeville show, tap dancing, you know, because it happened there. They were next door to the Middle Eastern grocer, which was the first Lebanese grocer in Canada. They were Bulgarian when they started, and they're still Bulgarian. Johnny from Cafe Cleo is Greek, so you had a lot of that. But they unfortunately they got nervous. They had a bit of trouble with both English and French, and so there too they were somewhat easily, not easily, because they held out a fuck of a long time. But they finally caved because they were just nervous. The dude had made them nervous. He somehow told them that if they didn't accept his offer of helping them move across the street, they would have gotten nothing, because the expropriation would have left them with nothing, which is actually bullshit. If that was true, they would have offered them nothing, because you don't offer something if it turns out that you can get them for nothing. But they actually caved into that threat, and they were worried. It was like, well, he said if we didn't take the deal, we wouldn't get anything. And so, bullying, there you go. And I think it's sad, even though they're on the same block. I mean, it's not the same equipment, it doesn't taste the same. And the value of being in the same freaking place, doling out the hot dogs for 100 years, that's special. Doing it in 2 locations is not so special. So it's a little bit sad.
We're in the process of planning a theatrical funeral where we're actually going to have the burlesque artist carrying a big coffin that says Montreal Heritage and Culture on the coffin, because that's what they're doing. They're demolishing these incredible buildings that are over 100 years old, and they're kicking out all of the artists to build office towers and to bring in generic artificial culture for the tourists. It's so ridiculous.
Most likely it's just going to be a big pit like the ones up the street. That's the sad part. It's probably just going to be empty. The fact that it's supposed to be quartier de spectacle, but then there's all the urban planning precedents. The fact that we're back to the age where you can just create an empty lot, or the facadism, like, well, but we're going to preserve the history because these facades are going to get stuck to the bottom of a glass tower. I mean, these are all things that there's just so many precedents that should not be made with this demolition and with whatever comes next. But hey, if there is a hopeful note somewhere in there, is if they at least don't demolish or fuck it up too much, maybe somebody will come in and actually buy some of this and start bringing it back. The older ones are the most solid ones, those facades. And that's why, actually, this one, now that I look at it closely, you cannot dismantle that one brick by brick. If they don't keep that one standing, it's a goner. And I think that might be the oldest facade, actually, on the block. The one that's right there. That's a mix of concrete and mortar and stuff. They wouldn't be able to dismantle that. They would have to hold that up or admit that they're going to do it.
You can see they've already chalked some of the numbers and things on the buildings, eh? Now the idea is they're going to build this giant glass office tower. It's going to block out the light here. It's going to block out the heritage that could have been enjoyed in the past. And I mean, just look at the detail in these buildings. I mean, 1890 it says up there.
There's a facade that's just being held up. There's no building behind that one. It's just an empty lot. Well, they're saying, oh, we're going to number the bricks and the parts and put it back. But I mean, to take a close look, I mean, right away you could see their excuse that the rusted tin and copper at the top, they're going to be like, oh, look at that, you know. Well, there already was a renovation since 1890 of that. But I mean, there's fucking nothing wrong with that. And you won't be able to take these fucking elaborate granite columns out and then put them right back. I mean, it's a myth, it's a sham, it's a game.
They're going to start demolishing this entire block, with the exception of the Cafe Cleopatra, of course. So that's why we're planning a theatrical funeral at this stage. Get the burlesque artists, the cultural workers, the people who live in the neighborhood, the stakeholders, to essentially get a big black coffin saying Montreal heritage, Montreal culture on the side of the coffin, and do the funeral procession, because at this stage, because no politician has been willing to listen at the federal, the provincial, or the municipal level. I mean, what type of society are we living in when we can't even get a single politician from any level of government to care about our own heritage? So,
well, they don't listen to experts. They don't listen to people who know how shit gets done. They just, it's politics and it's connections and it's corruption and it's incompetence and it's pig-headedness, you know. Like, there are citizens telling them, this is an eyesore, tear it down. Because when it's vacant and expropriated, it is an eyesore. You pan from there and you go all the way to there, and we have almost the full horizon of 1800s building and stone and stuff, you know. That's what makes it, like, you rip one bit out to put a glass building, it's over. You lose all of that from one end to the other.
But again, it doesn't fit into the neighborhood. It doesn't fit into the vocation of what these buildings were built for and why they're famous. I mean, that's
not how culture works. Like, anytime you have a mega project where it's like, you know what, we're going to wipe all that out and we're going to come back into something brand new and it'll be just the same, I'm afraid it never works. It just plain never works, because that's not how culture works. It's bit by bit, you know. Spectrum, Club Soda, all these places grew up over the years gradually and built their reputations. That's how you build a quartier des spectacles.
During the age of Prohibition, this was pretty much the only place in North America where you could come and drink alcohol and you could have a party in it. I mean, this is such a huge part of our history and our identity, and the reason why our city is called Festiville and why it's considered such a party town across North America. It's because of this.
Where else do you see that? Nobody, no other city just casually throws it out. It plays on the typical ignorance of the masses with the, well, but it is an eyesore, look at that, board it up, tear it down. You know, I hear that from a lot of friends even. They're like, Louis, why do you even, it's just like, because you're not seeing it fixed up like it should be, honoring the past and well renovated. I mean, fuck, man. You'll never see a facade like that again. You know, you spiffy that up and put in some nice windows. Like, I don't know why. It's just on a business. Let's use their business language. Why are they not seeing the potential? Why aren't they shopping it to organizations and developers who have a track record of really valuing historical stuff and restoring it and seeing the potential? If we end up seeing, when we stand here the next time, a nice empty pit, whether it's a hole or if it's gravel and there's some garbage and junkies and shit, we should consecrate it as Yacarini Park or something like that, you know?
Yacarini parking lot.
Park and parking, yeah. Stationnement Yacarini.